Amma had always believed that storms announced themselves, dark clouds, heavy winds, the kind of silence that warns the bones before it warns the sky. But the storm that shattered her life arrived quietly, carrying a man she once loved. Kofi didn't shout. He didn't give excuses. He simply folded his shirts one by one, humming as if he were preparing for a festival instead of destroying a marriage. Amma stood in the doorway, her hands shaking. "Where are you going?" she asked, though the packed bags already answered her. Kofi sighed impatiently. "Amma, you know we haven't been happy. I found someone who understands me. Someone younger. Someone fresh." The word cut deeper than a blade. He didn't look at her again, didn't see the way her chest tightened, didn't see the tears clinging to her lashes. He only cared about the bright future he imagined with that new woman. Before he left, he turned and gave her one final cruelty. "You'll be fine. You always survive." And then he was gone, down the dusty path, past the mango trees, past everything they had built together. Word traveled faster than the wind. By evening, the entire village had formed their own stories about Amma. She wasn't enough for him. He just wanted someone younger. I heard she begged him to stay. None of that was true. Inside her empty home, Amma sank to her knees. But she didn't cry loudly. She cried the quiet, dangerous kind, the kind that grows into something sharper than grief. As the moon rose, she whispered into the darkness. "If you think you've left me broken, Kofi, then you've forgotten who I am." What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that the younger woman Kofi had run to already carried a truth powerful enough to pull Amma out of the dust and into a destiny she never imagined. Her name was Sua. The villagers whispered that she was beautiful, skin glowing like fresh palm oil, laughter soft as river water. They said Kofi walked beside her as if she were a queen and he her loyal guard. They said she must feel proud, taking another woman's husband. But Sua did not feel proud. Not even for a minute. The first time she saw Amma, it wasn't in the village square or at the well. It was from afar, hidden behind a coconut tree, watching the woman Kofi had abandoned. Amma moved slowly, like someone carrying invisible stones on her back. Yet she held herself with a quiet dignity that no one could steal. When she swept her compound, she didn't rush. When she fetched water, her steps were steady even though her eyes betrayed storms. Sua felt a weight in her chest. This was the woman she had replaced? Kofi had told her Amma was bitter. That Amma disrespected him. That she nagged, insulted, and made him feel small. Sua had believed him, because she wanted to believe him. But the woman she watched was nothing like his stories. One evening, while Kofi was away, Sua sat alone in her hut, turning the truth over in her mind like a stone heated in fire. Kofi had never spoken about Amma's kindness. He had never mentioned how Amma supported him when he was jobless. He had never said how Amma had used her little savings to help him start his trading business. Sua learned these things from the villagers. Whispers carried to her whether she wanted them or not. The guilt grew roots. And then came the night she discovered a secret, one that Kofi hid from both women. A secret that would bind Sua and Amma's lives in a way neither of them expected. A truth that would force Sua to seek out the very woman her presence had wounded. Sua couldn't sleep. The night air was thick, heavy, as if it carried a warning. Her mat felt too hard, her skin too sensitive, her thoughts too loud. Kofi had not returned yet, and lately, he had been coming home late more often than not. He always had excuses, business meetings, a sick friend, a broken cart. And she had always nodded, swallowing her doubt like bitter herbs. But tonight, something pulled her up from her mat. A sound, soft, repeated. A shuffle just outside the hut. Sua froze, listening. It wasn't Kofi's footsteps. His steps were heavy, impatient, always carrying the weight of a man who felt the world owed him something. This was different, light, careful, almost fearful. She rose slowly and wrapped her shawl around her shoulders, pushing aside the woven door curtain just enough to see outside. Two figures stood near the compound wall. Children. A boy and a girl, thin, barefoot, clothes torn at the edges. Their faces were turned toward the hut, toward her hut, as if waiting for someone to emerge. Sua's breath caught. Who were they? Why were they here at this hour? The boy stepped closer to the doorway, lifting a small calabash filled with something wrapped in leaves. He placed it gently on the ground, then pulled the girl's hand, urging her to leave. They moved quietly, looking around as though they feared being seen. Sua stepped outside cautiously. "Hey, you two," she whispered. "Who are you? Why are you here?" The children stopped, stiffened, but did not flee. The girl turned first, eyes wide, more tired than frightened. "We came to see him," she said. Him? Sua frowned. Who? The boy pointed at the hut. Your husband. The world tilted. Sua felt her heart punch the inside of her ribs. My husband? You mean Kofi? Both children nodded. Sua's throat dried instantly. She struggled to form words, her mind racing faster than her tongue. What? Why are you here to see him? The boy's voice cracked as he answered. Because he told us to come here, if we ever needed food. Sua blinked. What? He pushed the calabash toward her. It is our turn to give something back. Sua stepped closer, kneeling slowly. She lifted the leaves. Inside were roasted plantains and small dried fish, simple food but prepared with care. Not a child's offering. A family offering. Sua looked up again. Where is your mother? The girl lowered her head, her voice trembling. She is sick. Very sick. She told us to bring this before she gets worse. Before she gets worse? Sua whispered. What? What does your mother have to do with Kofi? The boy hesitated, then stepped forward. Because Kofi is our father. The night seemed to split open. A sound escaped Sua, thin, broken, almost like a wounded animal. The world blurred at the edges. The children stood still, waiting as if used to adults breaking in front of them. Sua forced herself to breathe, though each breath hurt. Kofi had children? Children he never told her about? Children old enough to have lived through seasons before he married her? Her hands began to shake. When did he tell you to come here? The boy answered, before he left us. Before he left Mama. Sua felt something crack. Not a small crack. A deep one, like a tree splitting after lightning. She swallowed hard. And your mother, does she know you came here? Yes, the girl whispered. She said if Kofi no longer wants us, maybe he will want to help you. She said maybe you are kinder than him. That was the moment Sua broke completely. Not from betrayal, but from sorrow. Because everything suddenly made sense. Kofi's lies. His shifting moods. His sudden generosity with food that wasn't his to give. His disappearances. His anger when Sua asked too many questions. His need to control the story, control her. And now, the truth stood before her in the shape of two hungry children. Sua reached out and gently pulled them closer. You are safe here, she whispered. You did nothing wrong. The girl began to cry softly, the boy clenching his jaw like someone too young to carry so much pain. Sua hugged them both, her voice steady even though her heart was a storm. You don't have to fear me. The boy looked up. Will you tell him we came? Sua closed her eyes. Yes, she said. I will. But will he be angry? The girl asked. Sua opened her eyes slowly. No, she said, a firmness settling into her bones. Because I will not allow him to be. The children seemed relieved, though still unsure. Sua led them inside, gave them water, let them sit on woven mats. She warmed leftover food and placed it before them. She didn't ask too many questions, they had already said enough. As they ate, she stared at the doorway, imagining the moment Kofi would walk through it. The fury building inside her was not loud. It was not wild. It was cold. Sure. Controlled. A flame that had learned discipline. The children finished eating but grew drowsy before they could finish speaking. She laid them on the mat and covered them with a cloth. They fell asleep almost instantly, exhaustion overpowering fear. Hours passed. The village animals quieted. A distant drumbeat faded into silence. Night thickened. And then, footsteps. Heavy. Impatient. Kofi's. He entered the compound, grumbling to himself about the late hour. He didn't notice the calabash. He didn't notice the second pair of small sandals beside Sua's. He pushed through the curtain. Sua, He stopped. His eyes widened at the sight of the sleeping children. His breath caught in his throat. His spine stiffened like a trapped animal's. Sua rose slowly, her expression unreadable. Kofi, she said softly, your children came to see you. He swallowed, his face shifting through guilt, panic, anger. Sua, I can explain. She stepped forward, voice calm as cold water. No, you will not explain. You will tell me the truth. All of it. Tonight. Kofi opened his mouth, but the moment he looked at his children sleeping peacefully at her feet, he understood something he never expected. Sua was no longer under his control. She had learned the truth. She had seen what he hid. She had met the ones he abandoned. And now she held the power he thought he owned. Kofi's face paled. Sua whispered, sit down. Your lies end tonight. Kofi didn't sit at first. He stood at the doorway like a hunted animal, shadows cutting across his face. His eyes flicked from Sua to the children, then back to the door, as if calculating whether he could flee before she demanded more. Sua didn't move. She didn't shout. She didn't tremble. She simply looked at him with the kind of calm that strips a man bare. "Kofi," she said quietly. "Sit." Her voice held something new, authority, and something colder beneath it. Kofi obeyed. He sat on the stool near the wall, hands clenched, jaw tight. The small oil lamp flickered, casting trembling light on the room. The children slept a few feet away, curled together like they were used to protecting each other. Sua knelt beside them, adjusting the cloth gently before she turned back to her husband. "Start from the beginning," she said. "Who is their mother?" Kofi exhaled sharply, rubbing his face. "A woman I knew before I met you. It was nothing serious." Sua didn't blink. "Her name." He hesitated. "Ajoa." Sua repeated it softly, tasting the truth for the first time. "Ajoa. And you left her?" "There were reasons," Kofi muttered, shifting uncomfortably. "She became difficult. Demanding. She wanted too much." Sua's jaw tightened. "She wanted support. For the children you created." Kofi flinched but didn't answer. Sua stepped closer. "What happened to her?" He sighed, avoiding her eyes. "She became ill. She wouldn't stop blaming me. She said I ruined her life." "And did you?" Sua asked, her voice almost a whisper. Silence. Kofi looked at the ground. "I didn't mean to. Things were hard. I couldn't stay. I had my own life to build." Sua's heart tightened painfully. "Your own life," she echoed. "With me." That made him look up. "You must understand," he said quickly, "I never meant you to find out this way. I was going to tell you eventually." "When?" Sua asked. "After how many lies? How many late nights? How many excuses?" Kofi stiffened. "You're overreacting." Sua laughed softly, but it wasn't a warm sound. "You abandoned a sick woman and your own children, and now you call me dramatic?" Kofi's jaw twitched. "She told them to come here, didn't she? I know her. She wants to ruin my life." Sua stepped forward sharply. "She wants to survive, Kofi. She wants her children to survive. She has no strength left to ruin anything. What she wants is help." Kofi scoffed. "She always wanted too much help." Sua closed her eyes, fighting the anger rising like a storm. Not anger for herself. For Ajoa. For the children. For a truth buried under his selfishness. "Where does she live?" Sua asked. Kofi stiffened. "Sua, no. You're not going there." "Where?" she repeated. "She's far from the main village," he mumbled. "In a small hut near the edge of the forest. She didn't want anyone to see her weakness." Sua felt her chest ache. "Did you visit her when she fell sick?" Kofi didn't answer. Sua stepped closer. "Did you?" He shook his head silently. She inhaled sharply through her nose, the weight of his neglect hitting her like physical force. "You didn't check on her," she whispered. "Not even once. While she raised your children. While she grew weaker. While she still believed you might return." Kofi stood abruptly, anger rising like a shield. "I've done what I could. I brought food sometimes." "Food that came from my hands?" Sua interrupted, her voice rising for the first time. "You took what I cooked and told her it was from you." Kofi froze. Sua stared at him, the realization cutting deeper now that she said it aloud. "You didn't give her anything," she continued. "You pretended to." Kofi opened his mouth but nothing came out. The lamp's flame flickered, stretching their shadows across the walls like ghosts of all the lies between them. Sua's voice softened, but it was the softness of finality. "How long has she been sick?" "Months," Kofi whispered finally. Sua swallowed hard. "And you told no one?" He looked away, shame creeping across his face. Sua knelt beside her stool, steadying herself. "Kofi, look at our home." She gestured to the sleeping children. "These are the ones she raised. These are the ones she protected even when she was dying." He kept staring at the ground. "And tonight," Sua said softly, "they chose to come to me. Not to you." That hurt him more than any slap. "You think I don't care?" Kofi snapped suddenly. "You think I wanted any of this? I made mistakes, but I'm not a monster." Sua didn't yell back. She simply whispered, "Then prove it." Kofi blinked. "You said Ajoa is sick," Sua continued. "She helped you once. She bore your children. And you left her to carry all the consequences alone." Kofi swallowed. "You will take me to her in the morning." His eyes widened. "No. Sua." "You will take me," she repeated firmly. If you still want to call yourself a man. Kofi stared at her, breathing hard. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then nodded slowly. Fine. Sua exhaled, but her voice remained steady. And Kofi, understand this. She touched the girl's shoulder softly, then the boys. The children stay here tonight. Under my roof. Under my care. Kofi looked at them, then at her. Are you punishing me? He asked bitterly. No, Sua said. I'm doing what you should have done. Kofi sat back down, defeated. Sua watched the children sleeping peacefully, children who had wandered in darkness to find hope in a home that wasn't theirs, with a woman they barely knew. Her heart broke for them. And for Ajoa. And finally, quietly, for herself. Tomorrow she would face the woman he left behind. The truth he buried. The life he tried to forget. Tonight, she watched over the two little souls who carried the truth in their tiny, fragile hands. Tomorrow would decide everything. The morning sun had barely risen when Sua wrapped a cloth around her waist and prepared to leave. The children were still asleep, their faces peaceful in a way that broke her heart. They had cried softly through the night, flinching at every thunder-like sound, as though expecting someone to shout at them or drag them out again. Sua had held them until they finally drifted off. Now she stood at the doorway, watching them with a fierce protectiveness she didn't fully understand yet. Kofi hovered outside, avoiding her eyes. His shoulders were rigid, his clothes wrinkled from a sleepless night. The guilt sat on him like a heavy garment he couldn't remove. Are you ready? Sua asked quietly. He nodded without looking up. Sua stepped out, closing the door behind her. The children stay here, she said again. They are safe. Kofi didn't argue this time. They walked in silence at first, their footsteps crunching on the dirt path. Birds chirped in the early light, unaware of the heaviness between them. Sua could feel the distance between them like a wound. Not the physical space, but the emotional one Kofi had carved with secrets. After a long moment she finally asked, how long has she been alone? Kofi exhaled. A long time. That is not an answer. He swallowed. Years. Sua felt her chest tighten sharply. Years since you last visited? Checked on her? Helped with the children? He didn't answer. She stopped walking. Look at me. Reluctantly he turned. You left her with 2 children in illness, Sua said. You left her to carry all the weight while you lived comfortably. He looked away again. I didn't know what to do. You could have stayed, Sua said. You could have helped. You could have sent something, anything. Instead you ran. Her words cracked in the air like a whip, but she didn't regret them. The truth had been hiding for too long. They resumed walking, the forest growing thicker around them. The path became narrower, vines curling around tree trunks like forgotten stories. Finally they reached a clearing. A tiny mud hut stood there, barely holding itself up. The roof sagged, patched with old cloth and dried leaves. Smoke did not rise from the chimney. No sound came from inside. Sua's heart dropped. Is this it? She whispered. Kofi nodded, shame burning on his face. Sua took a step forward. The ground felt cold beneath her feet. What if she's alive? Kofi said quickly, though he sounded more hopeful than certain. She must be. Sua approached the door gently and knocked. A long pause. Then a faint, hoarse voice whispered, Come in. Sua pushed the door open. Inside, the air smelled of damp earth and sickness. A single mat lay on the floor. On it, Ajoa, thin as a shadow, struggled to sit up. Her hair hung loose, her cheeks hollow, eyes heavy with exhaustion. She blinked at the light, squinting. When her gaze landed on Kofi, she flinched as though struck. Sua stepped forward, kneeling beside her. I'm Sua, she said softly. Ajoa swallowed with effort. I know who you are. Her voice was barely audible. Kofi told me, once. Sua felt something twist in her stomach. Ajoa's eyes drifted past her. My children, are they with you? Yes, Sua said immediately. They are safe. Ajoa exhaled slowly, relief softening her face for the first time. Her shoulders sagged. Then her gaze moved back to Kofi. You came, she whispered, pain threading every word. After all this time. Kofi opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His guilt silenced him more thoroughly than any curse. Sua touched Ajoa's hand gently. We came because the children need you. And because you deserve help. Ajoa blinked rapidly, tears rising. No one has said that to me, for so long. Sua felt heat rise in her own eyes. How long have you been sick? She asked softly. Too long, Ajoa whispered. It comes and goes, but each time it takes more of me. She looked down. I was afraid. Afraid my children would watch me fade away. Afraid he. Her voice broke. Afraid he had forgotten us. Kofi stepped forward. Ajoa. I didn't forget. She gave a sad, weak smile. You forgot enough. Sua closed her eyes briefly, the weight of those words landing like a stone in her chest. Ajoa, she said carefully, we can bring you back to the village. My home is small but I can care for you. And your children need their mother. Ajoa looked startled. You would take me in? After everything? After him? Sua nodded. You didn't wrong me, she said gently. You suffered because of decisions neither of us made. You deserve better than this. Tears slipped down Ajoa's cheeks. I don't want to cause problems between you, she whispered. Sua shook her head. Kofi caused the problems. You and I are just living with the consequences. The truth hung heavy in the air. Kofi looked as though the words physically hit him, but he didn't argue. Ajoa's hand trembled as she reached toward Sua's. Thank you, she whispered. Not many people would help another woman in their place. Sua squeezed her hand. Good women help each other. Especially when men fail them. Outside, the wind rustled the trees, as if agreeing. Sua stood slowly. We'll carry you back. You'll stay with me until you're strong again. The children will be with you every day. Ajoa pressed a hand to her chest, overcome. Kofi finally spoke, his voice thick. I'm sorry. Ajoa didn't respond. The silence said everything. Sua turned to him. You will help carry her. You will help care for your children. Not because you deserve forgiveness, but because they deserve a father. Kofi nodded, tears gathering in his eyes. Sua took a deep breath. This wasn't the life she imagined. But she would protect these children. She would help this woman. She would restore what cruelty had tried to break. And Kofi would face everything he ran from. The real story had just begun. The journey back to the village was slow and heavy. Kofi walked ahead, clearing branches and smoothing the path where he could, but guilt weighed each of his steps like iron chains. Sua and Ajoa moved behind him, Sua supporting Ajoa's frail body, Ajoa leaning onto her as though each breath took strength she no longer possessed. The forest seemed quieter than usual, as if listening. Every rustle of leaves, every broken twig underfoot echoed the unspoken questions between them. After nearly an hour, the trees parted, revealing the village ahead. Smoke rose from morning fires, children's voices scattered through the air, and villagers moved about with baskets, tools, and gossip ready on their lips. And gossip was exactly what Sua feared. She felt Ajoa tremble. They will stare, Ajoa whispered, voice thin. They will judge. What will they say when they see me beside you? Sua tightened her grip. Let them talk. Their tongues don't decide your worth. Ajoa blinked slowly, like she was trying to hold that assurance in her hands. As they stepped into the village, conversations began to stop. Heads turned. Eyes widened. Three things shocked them at once. Sua supporting a sick woman. Kofi walking silently beside them. And Ajoa, the woman who had vanished, the one no one dared ask about, returning as a fragile shadow. Murmurs rose, weaving through the air like smoke. Is that her? She looked so weak. Kofi brought her back? No, Sua brought her. But Sua didn't stop. She kept her eyes forward, leading Ajoa toward her home. When they reached the doorway, Kofi hesitated as if afraid to cross the threshold. Sua understood. Stepping inside meant more than entering a room. It meant facing the children, facing his lie, facing his truth. But this time he didn't run. He followed her in. Inside, the two children were sitting on the floor, playing with stones Sua had given them earlier. When the older child, Amma, looked up and saw her mother, she froze. A mama? Her little brother, Kojo, turned too, eyes widening like rising moons. Mama? They rushed forward, nearly knocking Ajoa over as they clung to her legs, crying into her clothes. Ajoa sank to her knees, holding them with trembling arms. Her tears fell silently onto their hair. I thought I would never see you again, she whispered shakily. Sua stepped back, giving them space, her chest tightening as she watched a mother reunite with the children she almost died trying to protect. Kofi stood in the corner, face crumbling as he witnessed what he had stolen from them. The house filled with soft sobs, relief, guilt, and a bittersweet joy. The kind that hurts and heals at the same time. When Ajoa finally looked up, her eyes met Sua's. How can I ever repay you? You don't owe me anything, Sua said. Just rest now. Healing begins from here. Later, when the children were finally asleep at their mother's side, Sua stepped outside to fetch water. She found Kofi sitting on a wooden stool, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. "You disappeared for a long time," she said quietly. "You didn't look up. I know. You didn't take responsibility. I know. You hurt her. You hurt them. And you hurt yourself." He inhaled sharply. "I know, Sua. I know all of it." Silence stretched between them. Kofi finally lifted his head. His eyes were red, his face lined with remorse. "I was young and stupid. I panicked when she got sick. I panicked when the children cried. I thought, if I walked away the burden would fall off me too. But it didn't," Sua said. "It never did," he whispered. "It followed me every day. And when I married you I thought I could start fresh, but lies don't stay buried." Sua crossed her arms. "No. They don't." Kofi lowered his gaze again. "She deserved better than what I gave her. So did the children. And so did you." Sua's throat tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "What matters now is what you choose to do." Kofi nodded slowly. "I will help her. I will help the children. I will rebuild what I destroyed. And then? And then whatever you decide. I will accept," he said. "If you want me gone I will go." Sua inhaled deeply. She didn't forgive him. Not yet. Perhaps not ever fully. But she also wasn't ready to decide the fate of her heart while pain was still fresh. "For now," she said, "your responsibility is them. Not me." Kofi bowed his head. "Yes." That evening the village elders came to the door, drawn by rumors. The oldest of them, Nanaba, stepped inside. Her eyes studied Ajoa, the children, then Sua. "You brought her back from the brink," she said softly. "This is not just kindness, it is strength." Sua lowered her head respectfully. "I only did what was right." Nanaba looked at Kofi with a harder gaze. "And you will now do what should have been done long ago." Kofi swallowed. Nanaba's tone softened again as she faced Sua. "You have taken a broken family into your own home," she said. "This is how legends of good women begin." Sua felt her chest warm and ache. She wasn't trying to become a legend. She was just trying to do what her own heart demanded. Nanaba touched Ajoa's forehead. "She will recover. With care she will regain strength." Ajoa squeezed Nanaba's hand weakly. Before leaving, Nanaba looked at Sua again. "You have changed the path of 3 lives today. Remember, goodness always returns to the one who gives it." Then she stepped out, leaving Sua in quiet reflection. As night fell, Sua sat beside Ajoa, who slept peacefully for the first time in years. The children curled against her like small birds. Sua watched them, and felt something shift inside her. A new path was forming. Not one she expected. Not one she asked for. But one she was strong enough to walk. Her role in this story wasn't to fight another woman. Her role was to rebuild what cruelty had shattered. And that journey had only just begun. The message arrived at dawn. A single knock. A single folded leaf. A single line written in hurried strokes. "He is coming back." Amina stared at the message for a long time, her breath trapped somewhere between fear and exhaustion. 4 months she had rebuilt her world slowly, piece by fragile piece. She had learned to walk through the market without people whispering. She had learned to sleep without hearing the slam of the door her husband had closed behind her the night he left. She had learned to breathe again, because of Lolly. Lolly, the younger woman he left her for. Lolly, who had shattered the illusion of betrayal by showing Amina the truth. Lolly, who had walked into Amina's life not as a rival, but as a mirror, reflecting all the lies they both had been fed. And now the man who had wounded them both was returning. Amina tightened her wrapper, stepped outside, and saw Lolly waiting beneath the neem tree. She looked restless, twisting her fingers as if they were knots she needed to undo. "He knows," Lolly whispered. "He knows I told you everything." Amina knew exactly what everything meant. The manipulation. The tricks. The fake promises. The way he had played them both like pieces in his own game. Amina looked toward the east, where dust lifted along the road, the sign of a traveler approaching. "He will want control again," Amina said quietly. "He will expect the same silence he forced on us." Lolly nodded. Her eyes shimmered, not with fear, but with a fire she had learned to keep alive since the day she walked out of his compound and into Amina's home. "What will we do?" Lolly asked. Amina felt the answer rise inside her, steady and clear. "We will not hide," she said. "We will face him." He arrived at noon. Tall, confident, and certain he could reclaim whatever he chose. He stepped into the village like a man returning to collect a debt. People watched from doorways. Everyone remembered how cruelly he had abandoned Amina. Everyone remembered how Lolly had followed him, only for the truth to unravel days later. And now they watched as the two women stood together in the village square, waiting. He slowed when he saw them side by side. "Amina," he said, voice smooth, "I came to bring you home." She didn't move. "And Lolly," he continued, shifting his smile, "you have misunderstood many things. I will explain." "No," Lolly said sharply. He blinked. Amina stepped forward, her voice calm but unshakable. "You told her I was cursed," she said. "You told her I stole your luck. You told her you married her because destiny demanded youth, because the elders would bless a younger bride. You made her believe she replaced me." The man's jaw tightened. "And when she realized your lies," Amina continued, "she came to me. She expected hatred. Instead she found truth. She found you twisting her against me," he snapped. But Lolly stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "I found the woman you abandoned," she said. "I found the truth you hid. You wanted two broken women who would never speak to each other. Instead, you created two who will never again fear you." The murmur in the crowd deepened. The man looked around, sensing the shift. "This is foolishness," he said. "Lolly, you belong with me. Amina, you were my first wife. Both of you." "No," Amina interrupted. "You lost that right the moment you broke your vows." For the first time he looked uncertain. Amina took a single step closer. "You came to reclaim something that is no longer here. We are not your shadows. We are not your property. We are not your unfinished chapters." Lolly lifted her chin. "You taught us how powerful a lie can be," she said. "We learned how powerful the truth is." He tried again, his voice rising. "You think the village will support you? You think anyone will stand with two women who—" But before he could finish, the village elder stepped out from behind the crowd and raised his staff. "We have watched," the elder said. "We saw what you did. And we saw how these two women rose from what you tried to break. You may step into this village as a visitor, but you will not claim what you abandoned." The man froze. His confidence cracked. Amina felt her chest loosen, as if years of suffocating weight had finally lifted. Lolly stepped beside her, their shoulders almost touching. "You should go," Amina said softly. "Your road continues without us." He looked at them, two women he had thought he could control, and realized the truth at last. He had no place in their story anymore. Without another word, he turned and walked away, the dust of the road swallowing his pride one step at a time. When he disappeared over the ridge, Lolly let out a shaky breath. "It's over," she whispered. Amina shook her head gently. "No. It is beginning." They stood together, watching the sunlight spill across the village. Two women once divided by lies. Two women now bound by truth. Two women who refused to remain silent. Lolly looked at Amina with a small, grateful smile. "Thank you for seeing me even when I came to you as the one who replaced you." Amina touched her arm. "Thank you for returning my voice when I thought I had lost it." In that moment, the village understood. This was not a story of rivalry. It was a story of two women reclaiming themselves. And together, they walked toward the life they would now build, one where their past no longer controlled their names. Amma sat outside her small hut, the wind cold against her skin, the world heavy as if it carried her shame for her. Ever since Kofi left her for Sua, the villagers whispered her name like a lesson, like a pity, like a story mothers used to warn their daughters. But tonight felt different. It was quiet. Too quiet. A soft knock sounded on her door. Not Kofi's arrogant pounding. Not a neighbor's careless tap. A gentle, hesitant knock, like someone afraid to break. Amma stood slowly and opened the door. Sua stood there. The younger woman. The new wife. The one he chose. Her eyes were red. Her scarf was crooked. Her hands trembled as if she'd been running for miles. Amma froze. Sua whispered, "Please, let me in. I can't stay there tonight." Amma should have slammed the door. Should have walked away. Should have savored the moment the beautiful new wife finally looked broken. But instead Amma stepped aside. Sua entered like a shadow searching for peace. She stood in the middle of the room, hugging herself, unable to speak for long seconds. Finally Amma asked, "Why have you come?" Sua looked up, tears slipping down her face. "Because I know your story now." Amma stiffened. "My story?" Sua nodded. "He told me you were cold, ungrateful, careless. That you wasted his time. That you couldn't make him happy. That he deserved better." Amma swallowed hard. She had heard all of those lies herself, in the very last weeks of their marriage. But now? Amma asked quietly. Sua wiped her eyes. "Now, I know the truth. Because he speaks to me the same way. Amma's heart clenched. A storm gathered inside her, not of revenge but of recognition. Sua continued, voice shaking. At first he was perfect, gentle, charming. He said I was everything he ever wanted. He brought me gifts, told me I was special, told me he left you because you never appreciated him. Amma looked away. But last night, Sua whispered, he snapped. Because I asked a small question. Just one. And suddenly he became someone else. Amma closed her eyes. She knew that someone else. The voice that blamed. The eyes that accused. The hand that tightened. The words that carved wounds deeper than fists. Sua took a shaky breath. Tonight he screamed at me for hours. He said I was changing. He said I was becoming like you. Amma inhaled sharply. Sua stepped closer. So I asked him, what happened between you two? What did he do to you? And Amma, he refused to answer. His face changed. His voice lowered. He told me to never ask again. Amma said nothing. The silence between them felt like a confession the wind itself carried. Then Sua whispered the words Amma never expected to hear. I know now he didn't leave you for me. He left you because you learned his patterns. And he fears the women who understand him. Amma's breath trembled. For the first time since the divorce she felt seen. Not as a failed wife. Not as a woman abandoned. But as someone who survived what another woman was now walking into. Sua sank to her knees. Amma. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I am here because I'm scared. Amma knelt too, placing a hand on her shoulder. You are not the first, Amma whispered. And you will not be the last. Men like him do not change. They simply choose new targets. Sua nodded slowly, tears falling. I should have asked for your story before taking your place, she whispered. I should have wondered why everyone warned me. I should have seen how quickly he rushed into marrying me. Amma gently lifted her chin. The world teaches young women to blame each other, she said softly. But the truth sits in the shadows, wearing the same face. Sua let out a broken sob. Amma embraced her, not because she owed kindness, but because she recognized the fear in those shaking shoulders. She had once held that same fear. Then Sua whispered, Amma, will he come for me?